Okay, I'll call the special city council meeting of April 13th, 2020 to order at 1:15. If we could call the roll, please.
Mayor Copeland,
Here.
Tom Baylor,
Here.
Kathy Sherman,
Here.
Jeff Gard,
Here.
Melina Meyer,
Here.
Ann Schaefer,
Here.
David Allison,
Here.
and David Gleason.
Here.
That's a quorum of council.
Move to approve the agenda. Second.
Have a motion to approve the agenda in a second. Council, if there's no objection, I'd like to add under audience comments regarding agenda items a report from your incident commander.
No objection.
Okay. Hearing none, I'll add that to the agenda. Thank you. Is there any conflicts of interest or ex parte
Well,
communications?
So was there no
Oh, I'm sorry.
objection to
Yeah,
approval?
we need to vote, don't we?
Yeah.
Is there any objection to approving the agenda as amended? Okay, hearing none. Does council have, it's approved as amended. Does council have any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications to disclose? Okay, hearing none. We have communications by and petitions from visitors, starting with a briefing from your incident commander, Paul Tremblay.
Good day, everybody. City Council and the citizens of Cordova. As the incident commander, I'd like to set the tone for today's council meeting. The City of Cordova Policy Group, the City Council, instituted a disaster declaration for COVID-19 pandemic. By doing so, and by design, makes the city manager the incident commander or their designee per the emergency operation plan. At the beginning of the declaration, the city manager and I were sharing the role as IC to get the incident management team rolling to comply with state mandate obligations that were being delivered on a daily basis. As the incident started to really ramp up, the city manager designated me as the incident commander. As a policy group, council roles is to give the trained incident management team direction, and that direction is the emergency operation plan under Annex L. Once that direction is clear by the policy group or changed, there can only be one person in charge. Over the last 2 weeks, now going on 3 weeks, it seems the community is driving the city council in a direction that has taken the incident management team out of the equation, making our jobs even more difficult, even impossible to conduct. The incident management team would like to know what direction you want us to go so maybe we can do our jobs. It would be my recommendation to set up a work session to discuss all the roles and the movement forward for our incident management team. Thank you.
Okay, any questions, council, since it's a report? Okay, hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
So this is audience participation. Would just remind you that that call-in number is 253-6202, and please mute your YouTube in the background, and you'll have 3 minutes to testify. And this is on the agenda for the special meeting of April 13th, 2020. Okay, if you could state your name for the record, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, hi, this is Ken Jones, 514 Sunnyside Drive. If callers are calling to that public hearing twice and take twice the time, I'd appreciate not being cut off this time. I'll keep it as close to my 3 minutes as I can while finishing my statement. The previous comments during the public hearing about our biggest ally being Governor Dunleavy was spot on. Who would have figured that one? I cannot believe so many citizens of Cordova would throw the entire fishing industry to the wolves in an attempt to close the community down to the incoming essential workers that help feed our community, our country, and the world. This is disgusting rhetoric and goes against everything we stand for as a close-knit fishing community and as a nation. Some of the same people who I've heard and seen protest against national border protections are now seeking to close our community from the outside world. Many of those who rallied against the Marine Highway shutdown are now speaking in support of airport closures. We need to change this narrative and keep them out. How do we further mitigate the impact? It is foolish to believe that we can keep this virus out of Cordova. It has likely already been here, and the quarantine measures already implemented work to prevent community spread. We need to continue our current measures and protect our economy while doing it. The council needs to get funding for the IMT, get hand washing capabilities around the community, increase our testing capacity in order order 30 hand sanitizer dispensers and place them at the door of every business and a couple at the gas station. I would even suggest mandating mask wearing in all public places. In countries that mandate masks, their curves are substantially flat. It works. That's why the CDC has changed its tune on mask wearing. This is how we best protect the lives of those who live here, not by closing the doors and subsequently killing our economy and wrecking the lives of thousands of our citizens that depend on the fishing industry. I would also like to point attention to the recent amendment of Passing B of the state of Alaska, also the emergency travel order. If you move forward with 1186, it will be in blatant violation of this state mandate. It is important that this is even posted on the agenda when there was state guidance on this topic well before this agenda was formed and posted. You were all made aware that the governor never intended Cordova to be included in the small community exemption. For any counselor to continue to purposely move items forward to get the city to violate this mandate against the advisement of the attorneys and the manager could and will result in serious legal repercussions to the city. This emergency order, if enacted, would result in direct harm to the city's revenue and Cordova's economy in general, also in serious harm to many constituents' employment and income. It has already resulted in inciting false panic among the fishing industry and many of the citizens. It's a huge waste of time for the staff and city resources during a pandemic when those efforts could be directed to supporting the incident command team. Creating these protocols on your own is not your job. That is the incident command team's job. And every time the council tries to micromanage this issue, you work against your oath of office and your mandate to support the incident command team's efforts in this time of crisis. You should only be acting on well-known
Okay, thank you, Kenny.
that are
I am going to have to cut you off, Kenny.
Incident command, not imposing your own agendas during this time of emergency. The
Kenny,
city manager and
that's
attorney
over 3
qualified
minutes,
as
Kenny.
pending-
Can you turn that off?
pending clarification from the state. That clarification came first
Kenny,
in the form of a press
I
release.
need to cut you off at 3 minutes to be fair to the other callers that I cut off.
Let somebody else speak twice. I'm going to keep going. This ordinance was formed.
We can't turn you off, Kenny. I'm just going to keep talking over you until you hang up. Kenny, please be respectful.
Of what the governor said, the agenda was noticed late Saturday afternoon after at least
Can you turn the sound
at
down?
least full press briefings took place. The intent of the state to exclude Cordova from being able to restrict
That worked. Okay, I just appreciate callers to be respectful and respect the 3 minutes. I've cut a lot of people off and I have to be fair to everybody, so thank you. So, what's that?
Can you maybe explain that you didn't realize in the public hearing you let somebody speak twice? I think he did, he thought you let one.
I thought he said, I misunderstood what he said. I thought he wanted to speak a second. He wanted to speak a second time so he could finish what he was saying.
He did, but he also said, since you let the other person do it twice.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't hear their name or I wouldn't have let him
I understand.
speak twice. Okay, so for the record, we're only allowing people to testify once. If I don't hear your name and have to ask for it at the end of your testimony and I find out it's a second time, I can't control that, so. Is there another caller online under audience comments? Okay, there will be an opportunity at the end of the agenda as well. So thank you, all of the public, for testifying. We're really going to great lengths, the council and clerk, to make sure that we provide opportunities for public comments in this interesting electronic communications. So if council wouldn't mind if I just provide a couple of extra reminders here about audience comments and just generalities. There's been some questions about meeting notice. Special meetings have 24 hours notice, and then emergency meetings can have as little as 6 hours notice, but there has to be an emergency reason to call an emergency meeting. And on correspondence, if you want to testify by correspondence, we understand that not everybody likes to call in. You can please email those to the city clerk. That's cityclerk@cityofcordova.net. And she will forward your email directly to council and get it into the next available meeting packet so it becomes part of the record. So I appreciate audience and public input by correspondence as well. Okay, so if you send something in and you don't see it immediately in a meeting packet, it's because it didn't arrive in time for the cutoff time, but it will go into the next available meeting packet, so thank you. So council, we have several items of correspondence. Is there any comments on those correspondence? From Gilbach, Sanders, Mulvaney, Laird, Smallwood, Laird, and Kopchak. Councilman Baylor.
Well, first off, I think all of us have read them, and we take it to heart and appreciate it. The constructive letters that help us move forward. And I do appreciate Dr. Sanders' letter. I think that's pretty well written. Everyone knows she's an excellent doctor, and this was probably not in her training to guide a community of this size through this. It seems from her letter, I would say she's kind of grasped the situation here, and it's given us good direction, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Baylor. Other council comments? Anybody online? Council online? Okay, hearing none. New business. We have emergency ordinance 1185, an emergency ordinance of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, amending Cordova Municipal Code Chapter 3.45 to add Cordova Municipal Code 3.45.090, entitled Emergency Mandates, which requires compliance with emergency mandates adopted by the city and imposes a fine for mandate violations.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second, and I would just remind, especially council online, that you do have your attorney online with us if you have any questions for her through the course of your deliberations. But Councilman Baylor, would you like to speak to your motion?
I would suggest we go to the phone lines roll call and make it easier for them, so I'll yield.
Okay. So on the phone, any comments, Councilman Schaefer?
Hi, yep, this is Councilman Schaefer. I'm supportive of this. I think in order to enforce any of our mandates in our quarantine, it needs to have some teeth, and there need to be some consequences, and this is a way to enforce that. So I'm supportive of this.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Sherman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I too am in support of this. I just have a couple quick questions, and maybe someone there can answer them. I'd like to know who people report to if they see a violation. Locally, do we call police dispatch? Do we send an email to Cordova Prepared? And for the state, who do we report to? And then secondly, how is this going to be publicized so that the public knows about it?
Okay. Helen.
We have a public information team, and as we develop these policies and these procedures, which we are actively doing, I want the community to know that we are working as hard and as fast as we can to get everything that's been recommended up and running. There's been a lot of great suggestions, and I want to just say rest assured we're doing that. Police right now is where you would call if you suspect a violation, and they will respond to that. In terms, what was your second question?
Second question was, how are we going to publicize?
How public, yeah. And so as we develop policies, we're going to get them out through the public information team, and that will be on the Cordova Prepared website. And we are also, just for the community to know, really getting close to launching a very specific Cordova COVID website so that it's a one-stop shop rather than having to wade through our City of Cordova website. And there'll be buttons that you can push that say, I'm a fisherman, I'm a business, I'm a this, and that will be up and running in the next 3 to 4 days. So I think it will provide all of you with more access to the information you're seeking, and anything that you need will be on that site.
Councilman Sherman, does that answer your questions regarding this ordinance?
It does. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Meyer, Vice Mayor Meyer.
Yeah, I'm also in support of this, how it was said before me, and just from the last Wednesday meeting, this was first brought to us, as it's just another tool that law enforcement here locally can use. They do have other means to enforce the state mandates, and if there's anything else happening, so I think this is another tool in our toolbox, so I support it.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Ellison.
Yeah, I support this as well. I just want to once again, as I stated the last time we discussed this particular issue, that I want us to be very careful that we don't end up with a police state of some kind and become the COVID Nazis and looking for people and especially would caution the public that we don't need half of Cordova tattletaling on the other half, but maybe a polite suggestion to somebody if they're not following, if they understand the rules. Anyway, I don't want us to pit ourselves against each other, and I think Becky Shipman made the comment, which is a good point on we're not going to stand for harassing anybody either. So I think we need to be real careful with this. I know that we need the teeth in something that the law enforcement can use, but I also don't want us to be just looking for people to write tickets to collect $500 checks.
Thank you, Councilman Allison. I think I heard the police say they were going to just ask for, remind people and kind of use the warning system until someone obviously doesn't intend on complying. But Councilman Guard.
I'm also in support. I don't envision us setting up a police state here with this, but it's always good to be cautious of stuff like that. And this is not designed to be a moneymaker for the city to go out and just write tickets. It's just another way to help people be aware of what they need to do. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councilman Gleason.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it, so that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I would echo everybody's comments, and I'm in favor of it.
Okay, all have indicated they're in favor of this. If there's no objection, could we do a roll call vote?
On emergency ordinance 1185, Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
David Gleason.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, the next item is Emergency Ordinance 1186, an emergency ordinance of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, imposing a temporary travel hold on all travel by air into the City of Cordova, except travel by individuals seeking care at a Cordova Critical Access Hospital, first responders, police officers, and Office of Children's Services personnel from noon a.m. 12 a.m. April 15th, 2020 through 11:59 p.m. on April 29th, 2020 to provide the city time to prepare for the COVID-19 outbreak.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll just take comment in the order here that I have on the sheet. Vice Mayor Meyer.
Yeah, I was one that asked for this to be put on the agenda. I thought it was important for council to discuss this this item in open public meeting with the with due notice and everything. And there was a change in the mandate that came out, which we no longer qualify, from my understanding. So I actually had a couple questions for Holly, if that's okay.
Yes, she's online for that purpose. Go ahead, Councilman Meyer.
Holly, how does the change in the new mandate affect Cordova, the mandates that we already have right now?
The change in the state's position regarding the small community exemption order really makes this ordinance incredibly vulnerable to challenge. I made every effort to draft it in a way that would be at least constitutionally protected, but we don't have that exemption, and given the way emergency operations are structured in the state of Alaska, the city is very much at risk. And there's a whereas clause in the ordinance that talks about the press release or the press conferences and the information we had from the governor at the time. But now with the written, posted, and published mandate, or the amended exemption order, I can't extend my recommendation that the council approve it based on that.
Okay, and then I had another question, kind of about the amended mandate that did come out, because I do believe that there was some good things in it afterwards about requiring face masks and some other provisions in there. But the change in qualification, we no longer qualify to be able to instate those. Is that correct? Am I reading it correctly?
No, my position on the city's ability to adopt social distancing requirements is that so long as the requirement is not travel-based, then the state mandates don't necessarily supersede your ability to protect your community. So as long as you are governing what's happening within your boundary uniformly, then I think you can do things like go farther and require everyone to wear masks in certain locations. It just can't be tied to travel. So there are a few of the emergency rules that Helen is promulgating that are before you today that we will have to go back and change. For example, you have different levels of social distancing based upon arrival date in Cordova. We cannot do that. We will need to make it simply say, must follow state mandate, period, and apply that uniformly. However, there are other things you can do, and certainly face masks, things like that, you can do. And I think that the emergency operations team and the city manager are going to need to go through that. I know Helen intends to, and just implement some of those other rules.
Okay, last question, and I'll go there. So because it's travel related, we wouldn't be allowed to have, say, if you enter in Cordova, you have to fill out a travel form or have any requirements based off of someone who just traveled to Cordova of our own mandate.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, was that all, Vice Mayor Meyer?
Yeah, other people can go now.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Ellison.
Yeah, I do not support the ordinance for legal reasons, number one, but number two is I wouldn't support it had the governor not made the amendment to the thing. I think if Cordova would, if our citizens would spend the time that they spent writing letters regarding the ferry to the governor and the federal representatives about needing and wanting and desiring tests, then perhaps we could get some testing supplies. Unfortunately, testing supplies seem to be tied to how many COVID positive people you have already, and if we're not testing hardly anybody, we're probably likely not going to change that aspect for anytime soon. But I know everybody's trying, NBE and CCMC, we're trying to get those tests, and the city's trying to get those tests, but unfortunately that, we'll stay in the queue for them, but we need to put more pressure on people to do those. I think there's things that we can do to mitigate what was to have both the industry and safety. I think that if people would turn off their Facebook and news for a week, and things will probably change, and those graphs will all be lower than what we're being told now. They've been changing daily as it goes. But anyway, I do not support this ordinance, and we'll vote it down. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Ellison. Councilman Sherman.
Well, I had my turn, Clay.
I didn't hear.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Councilman Sherman.
Clay, I had my turn. Thank you.
Oh, that was for the last ordinance. This is ordinance 1186.
Oh, sorry, losing track. I am not in favor of this for the numerous reasons that we've legally seen from the governor, and I also feel that we should be spending our time working harder to get information out to the public. I know an awful lot's been done behind the scenes, and it's not being seen publicly, and I feel that our efforts going that direction would be much more productive. So I will be voting against it.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Guard.
Yeah, thank you. I'll speak in opposition to this after the clarification from the governor that we've been trying to get for quite some time now. It kind of took that option off the table, and I think even if we did find some way to do it with the season projected or set up to open in the middle of May, we'd be shoving everybody into a small window coming in. They'd have no real chance to self-quarantine and get ready to go. So I think we'd be creating a much more unsafe situation than we would promoting safety. So that's all I'm out to is make this as safe as we can. So I speak in opposition to it for those reasons.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Schaefer.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I also am not supportive of this, just given the legal issues that we've been hearing about. But I'm also supportive of the spirit of the ordinance, just to give us time and be better prepared for when fishermen and processors, workers come into town. So I do agree with Councilmember Sherman that maybe instead we direct our efforts more into public awareness about what's going on to prepare, and also creating infrastructure for the harbor and processors for quarantine options. Yeah, so I'm not going to be voting in favor of this.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I'm not going to be voting in favor of this, but I did get some calls from some fishermen, and they brought up some good points. You know, several of these fishermen told me that they have crew coming in here within this next 2 weeks with the intent so they can get here early enough and quarantine themselves. They mentioned if this were to be enacted, they would actually have to all be coming in at once. And, you know, that gives you some thought on that. Is I think we're better off as people trickle in versus trying to force them all into one specific date or week or two. So along with everything else that's been said by my fellow council people, I'm not going to support it.
Thank you. Councilman Gleason.
Yeah, I'm not in support of this for numerous reasons. When it first came out, I did some research on my own and spoke to the airport manager, and she actually said that Alaska Airlines wouldn't participate in it even if we did enact it. And then, of course, the governor said no on the news, and then Wrangell was denied when they tried it, and now we've heard from Commissioner Crum with the new amended version on Saturday night that we're not allowed to do it. So not in favor.
Okay, I think I've heard all councilmen speak in opposition to this actual ordinance, if not the spirit. If there's no objection, we can go to a roll call vote. Okay, roll call vote, please.
On emergency ordinance 1186, Ann Schaefer,
No.
Kathy Sherman,
No.
Tom Baylor,
No.
Melina Meyer,
No.
David Allison,
No.
Jeff Guard,
No.
David Gleason.
No.
Motion fails 0-7.
Yeah, thank you. So council, what I'm doing is because we have a councilman in the audience today, I'm just going through my list here, except that I'm doing the ones that are online first. Then if we lose somebody or you don't unmute or something, it gives us a chance to come back to you as we get to those in the room here. So the next item on the agenda is ordinance 1187. Get back to my agenda here. Emergency ordinance 1187 is an emergency ordinance of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, ratifying revisions to temporary emergency rules and procedures adopted by the city manager in emergency order 2020-03 in response to COVID-19 that clarified the mutual aid agreement approval process, COVID-19 protocol submissions to the city, medical quarantine enforcement within the city, and collaboration efforts between the city and the native village of EAC in response to COVID-19.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Baylor.
since I am going to put in a motion to amend it, you wouldn't mind if I go first?
Okay, yes, Councilman Baylor.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to support the motion, the main motion, but I would like to amend the motion for those in the online there. On page 31, Rule 6, it says purchase. If it'll help, I'll read it. It says the city manager may authorize any purchase for which funds are available reasonably related to the emergency. Such purchases may be made without following each formal requirement, Chapter 5.12 of the Cordova Municipal Code. And this is the part that I would like to change. It says, the mayor shall provide written approval for any purchase proposed by the city manager reasonably related to emergency that exceeds $25,000. I think that should read the council shall provide written approval. I think anytime you can have, you know what? Yeah, we didn't get a second on this, but I finished anytime you can have 7 people, give advice is much better than just one person. And since we can have an emergency meeting within 6 hours, I don't see where this would impede anything, and it would give more public comment to that. So that's my motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have an amendment and a second. So on page 2 of 7 of that ordinance is just a change on Rule 6 there, about 2/3 of the way down the page on purchases, the last sentence there, instead of the mayor shall provide written approval for those purchases, that would be the city council shall approve any purchases. Is there any discussion on that amendment? And I'll go through the list here.
Can I?
Helen.
I just wanted to give Holly an opportunity to make sure we're on the right page here legally. So if you want, she's online.
Yeah, if there's no objection, city council here from our corporate council. Holly?
Yeah. You guys hear me okay?
Yes, you're coming through very clear.
Okay, good. So I want to talk to this because the purpose of this rule and that approval is to allow very fast movement. And that movement may be in less than 6 hours. And it's to allow movement when it's necessary. So council always has the ability to undo something later, except for when it comes to expending money, obviously that maybe can't be undone. So if you don't like the amount, then I would recommend you don't ratify the rule, or so to go through the rule and make amendments. So generally these are adopted by the city manager, and then they come to you for ratification so that they can start working immediately, right? That's especially important with one regarding money. So if you don't like the rule as a council, you can repeal the whole rule. You can say this rule has to go, or you can talk to the city manager and say, we recommend you change the amount. But in general, the goal here is to keep that emergency control over the amount at one point of contact that can move very quickly. So that's why the mayor is there as a check and balance, but it isn't your typical procurement process, and it's not usually going to rise to the level of council for this. So I would not recommend changing that to council. If council is not comfortable with that amount of money, I think that either repeal that entire rule or direct your city manager to really think about it, and she can, with the emergency operations team, come up with something that will make sure they have what they need to respond. Is that
Okay, Councilman Baylor.
Well, you know what? I was going to recommend I remove my amendment, but I'll let the other council weigh in on it. That'd be the proper way to do it.
Okay. So council, Helen had asked for a clarification. You've heard from your corporate counsel, so I'll go to those councilmen online for comment on the amendment. Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I don't think I would support the amendment or getting rid of the whole rule. I think the amendment, if passed, doesn't do anything different than what our Chapter 5.12 already has. We're already, city managers already authorized for purchases up to $25,000, and anything over $25,000 comes to council. So, six one, half a dozen of the other. We can change it to council, or we can just remove the whole purchases. But I do agree with Councilmember Baylor that putting one or two people responsible for everything is difficult. I don't think there's anything that is going to cost $5,000 that needs to be decided before a 6-hour meeting could be called on it. It had this decision regarding our $250,000 worth of Nigerian tests, or wherever they were coming from, the wiring money. Would have been too late to try to get any of that wired money back. So I think council needs to be able to weigh in on big money items, and I don't believe that that's going to slow down any of our emergency measures. So I support the motion.
Okay, Councilman Sherman to the amendment.
I was going to say that I also support the amendment. In agreement with Councilman Allison, it seems that the manager already has authority to purchase anything up to $25,000, and again, I think in lieu of some of the other things we've already tackled, $6 is maybe a good time for us all to think about things and research things, and probably not going to stop us from any emergency purchase. So I would speak in favor of the amendment.
Okay, I just want to remind council that your corporate counsel has recommended either just striking that rule altogether or revising an amount. But we can go on with discussion here. Vice Mayor Meyer.
Well, Mayor, I would be in favor of either. But.
Okay, I think I heard Councilman Allison say that as well. Vice Mayor Meyer.
Yeah, I think that what Holly, our attorney, said makes a lot of sense. That if it's something that has to be purchased within 6 hours, I think that's kind of unlikely to maybe happen. I think if we're considering that, maybe it's not so much that exceeds 25,000, but maybe like up to a certain amount would be maybe something to think about. So up to a certain amount she can spend on emergency if she has to, or just getting rid of this rule altogether and just do it how we do. She has authorization already up to the 25,000, and anything past that needs council approval. So kind of down those lines, I'd be comfortable with any of those changes.
Okay, Councilman Gard.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe Holly can answer a quick question for me that I thought she'd written or told us before that on a emergency meeting, even if we do go under the 6-hour announcement period if something was a huge dire emergency. We would not be invalidating any actions taken at that meeting, like approval of whatever dollar amount we were doing for something. So we could do this on a shorter notice than the 6-hour without invalidating it. Is that right, Holly?
Sort of. I mean, your rules are drafted to put you in the strongest position possible to make an argument that what you're doing is reasonable, both within the Constitution and the state statute. So that's in there to make it very clear that if you can show that it was reasonable, given the risk to human life and community welfare at that time, and it was tailored, and then you have that provision in your rule to protect you. So that's what we would rely on. We would say, look, this is still valid. Even though we didn't do 6 hours, look at what we were facing. This is an emergency, and this was valid because it's an emergency. Do we still have risk? Absolutely, right? I can't, because we are talking about 6 hours or less of notice, and so we're already in this world where we've compromised the due process rights of the public. So we just have to be, and council is doing this, I think, being very careful with and using that very judiciously. So yes, you're mostly right in that it is there and we're going to use it correctly. But to the extent there was another rule that simply said, look, she can do this, then we have greater protection. I mean, you also have the option of, if that rule was gone, right now it was gone, and tomorrow something came up where none of us anticipated it and it was something awful and we needed that to be able to move, then she could promulgate another rule, probably specific or more specifically tailored to exactly the type of spending that she was needing to do and when she needed to do it. And that could come before council for ratification. So the emergency system is designed to be fluid and move. So I think you're safe. If you want to make the amendment repealing it, I don't have any legal issues with that. I just want to make sure we do it with the correct process, because she still has those options.
Does that answer your question, Councilman Card?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So I'd be in favor of the repeal of Rule 6 then.
Okay. Councilman Schaefer?
Yeah, I think I'd also be in favor of just removing Rule 6, given that she can already make purchases up to $25,000, and then with the 6-hour time period, or what Holly just discussed with other emergency measures. So.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry, did you have more to add?
No, that was all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Gleason?
Yeah, I'm agree with Dave Allison that either repeal or amend.
Okay, and back to you, Councilman Baylor.
Okay, so thank you, Mayor. So the motion that I made was to insert city council, perhaps on advice of the lawyer. It would be easier if we voted that down and then somebody made a motion to simply remove Rule 6, since we can fall back on 512. I believe that was the cleanest way to do that, if the lawyer would like to speak to that.
Holly, if you could help us out on parliamentary procedure on an amendment, can the councilman just rescind his original motion or revise it?
Yes, that works.
Okay, would you like to rescind that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there any objection to withdrawing that motion? Okay, hearing none, that amendment was withdrawn. Councilman Baylor?
Yeah, I'd like to amend the main motion to remove Rule 6, purchase on...
Ordinance 1187?
Thank you.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. You've already kind of all spoken to this amendment, and so I would just open it in case there's anything council would like to add. So hearing no comments, is there any objection to a roll call vote on the amendment to remove Rule 6 from Ordinance 1187? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
David Gleason,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Jeff,
Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you. So to the main motion, let's see, ordinance 1187 as amended. And I'll go online for comment. Councilman Allison.
I don't have any other comments on that. I support it.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Sherman.
No comments. I am in support of it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Meyer.
Yeah, I just had one, maybe question for the manager about Rule 19, which is the Need a Village V Act representative, and I saw that the mayor shall appoint at least one representative from Native Village V Act. I was just curious if this had been run by MVE. I was kind of hoping, it says only at least one, but I'm hoping to have more than one representative from MVE participate in the emergency management organization.
The language is there to allow some flexibility because we don't yet know what direction we're going. So Holly, I don't know if you want to address that as well.
Yes, I mean, I think the language is there, to make sure you can have more. And I know that is sort of, I think that, Helen, you were saying that that's sort of the goal, but to the extent that there isn't another one at exactly the right time, or, that you don't have that additional representative, you don't want to be inadvertently in violation of these rules. Right. Praise the authority, but it certainly doesn't limit it. And I think it's important, too, to remember council's function stays, council's lawmaking function stays intact throughout an emergency, which means your direction, your advice, your position as council when you work with your emergency operations team is still there. So when you say, we want to see more representation, then that's information your city manager processes and responds to.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was just curious if that had been in the works or whatnot, but that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Meyer. Then did you want to speak to the motion as amended?
Oh, I'm in favor of this. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I might have missed that. Councilman Guard.
in favor, no comment.
Councilman Schaefer.
I'm also in favor.
Thank you. Councilman Gleason.
In favor.
And Councilman Baylor.
Yes.
Okay, all of you have spoken in favor of the motion as amended. Is there any objection to a roll call vote? Hearing none, a roll call vote, please.
David Allison,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
David Gleason.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, so 1187 is approved as amended. Okay, pending agenda. So just a couple of things come to mind. I'm still a little unclear. I thought we talked about having every meeting going forward as a special meeting, but do we still want to have a regular council meeting? I know we have some items of business like the election of officers and so forth. So I just mentioned that to council for consideration, I guess.
Okay. I did not advertise this week's.
Yeah, I know this one wasn't, but
okay.
I was just making that point. And then also, we had the incident commander requested a work session with council, and also council, I think, has requested a in the last meeting requested a work session to, I forget if it was for more clarification of how the incident management team works or for some insight into how it would be, how things are communicated to the public or both, but I would just mention that to council as reminders, I guess. Councilman Baylor.
So is there a system or a way that we could have a meeting? I think I brought this up earlier where, we get a lot of comments, questions from the public, and I'd like to see those get an airing and get some answers. So I don't know if the incident command team can provide somebody here at a meeting and maybe have those answered as they come in, how we could do that. But there's concerns out there, and then we kind of close the meeting, and it never gets answered, and then that just starts to fester. So I think we need to do a really good job of getting the public, the answers to their question and keep them informed. And, as a councilman, I sit here, I'm not really sure what the harbor plan is yet. So, and there's a lot of public concern about that, is if they have something, can they give it to us? So is there a way to have a meeting or some time in the meeting to have those kind of things addressed?
Okay, so I'll defer part of that question. We can certainly put like reports on for all the meetings that you call, to put a report on there from incident commander. And then part of that, I think I would defer to Helen or Paul, the incident commander, as far as giving councils periodic briefings, or have a way that if council has specific questions, that those could be.
Well, I'm including the audience part in this.
Okay. Okay.
Like today, there was some.
Okay, all the questions online.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
they should be answered as much as possible.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilman Schaefer.
Councilman Schaefer.
Yeah, I think on the pending agenda, it'd be nice, I don't know if this necessarily goes along with the work session with the incident management team, but to have some kind of work session as a council to discuss our policy. Like, our role in the management chart is policy guidance. And I feel like at this point, all of the policy guidance that we've been doing has been reactive instead of proactive. And it'd be nice to kind of talk out in the open, in the public, just about what our priorities are for the response, what our goals are for the response, and have an open dialogue on that. And so I don't know if that discussion would be appropriate for the incident management team work session or a separate work session.
Okay. I'm definitely hearing work sessions, and that's okay.
Along with what Councilman Baylor said with the answering the public's questions, I don't know if the PIOs could give a virtual town hall, basically, like a call in, ask questions, get your question answered once a week. Or if that's too much, I don't know. It's just an idea.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilman Sherman.
Councilman Sherman.
Couple of comments. I was going to suggest, I agree with Mr. Baylor wholeheartedly. I am frustrated I can't answer questions just on a daily basis. But I was going to say, and maybe Helen can speak to this, it seems like that might be a great use of this website. And I know the PIO staff is working on frequently asked questions, and maybe just have these questions tabulated and added there and answered there. And that seems kind of efficient, and we're not creating another meeting task for the team who's already stretched thin. And then as far as special meetings and regular meetings go, I kind of feel like we should be scheduling a special meeting every Wednesday at noon. If we cancel it, we cancel it, but just put it on there Wednesday at noon. Everybody gets used to it. Staff has time to work up agendas and answers and things like that for council. And then maybe we have a regular meeting once a month if we need to deal with regular stuff, whatever that was. And I would like to see work sessions, if they are dealing like with the emergency management team, come prior to a special meeting. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. So the incident team is meeting from 10 to 11 a.m. every morning of the week. And so that might make it a little tight. We could have at least a half-hour work session probably before would give maybe enough time. And so that's exactly where I was going to try to jump to for council. Councilman Sherman is because council had also talked about having a weekly meeting with Native Village of EAC. And so I'm just trying to figure out if council wants to have those kind of like have a regular weekly Wednesday meeting, like you suggest, from noon until say 1, and then perhaps follow that with a joint meeting with the tribe. Just a thought, but so council thoughts on that? Would that work to just plan on weekly Wednesday meetings from noon to 1?
I would support that.
Okay, and then I'm hearing a work session on around policy and also around Q&A, or I guess a little bit of structure how the incident management team works, and then the questions and answers specifically from council and the public. So we could schedule that for beforehand. Paul. You might want to add something. Yeah, just as we're working out loud here to set up our meeting schedule, the incident team, some of the members are here in the audience and would like to
Mike,
suggest.
your deputy incident commander. The question and answer question you asked, we're recommending people take those to the Cordova Prepared site. Those are reviewed and gathered and researched to have a question and answer session here live before we could vet things and find out the correct answers. We're getting so much mixed information and misinformation, and same with you all. You need to track everything back to the source because there's a lot of confusion. People are uncertain what's going to happen, things like that. So right now we're asking everybody to put their questions to Cordova Prepared. And the work session idea is to get together with you all privately to explain each other's roles and train you, make sure everybody's up to speed and knows their role and how to interact with the organization and the council. That's our thoughts on it. It's a great idea. And yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is incredibly frustrating for everyone because what seems like a very simple question on the front, now you have to start looking at the U.S. Constitution. What is the governor saying that we can or can't do? What's the president saying we can or can't do? And then on top of all that, just as you're getting to an answer, the landscape changes and a new tool's available or new. So, okay.
Question.
Councilman Gleason.
So you mean executive session private or?
No, we could a training session.
Okay.
Instead of calling it a workshop, we could have a training session. Would you set up a training time? We'll pass out the information that you need to know and review the stuff that's in Annex L, and so everybody understands their role. And if you have any questions of us or we have any questions of you, that way we're all on the same page. I think it'll make things run a little bit smoother.
How's that sound, Council?
That sounds
great.
And then would the council mind if we?
That can't be that still has to be an open public meeting, though.
Yeah, it's open public meeting, but it's council training. I'm sorry, one of the councilmen online had a comment. Or Holly. Did I miss something there? Okay, is it okay with council if we schedule that at the convenience of the incident management team so they have time to prepare and fit it into their schedule?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. It's one of the things about striking that rule that kind of occurred to me too is because of the unique situation here, it isn't real hard to call a meeting on fairly short notice and have not just a quorum of council, but all 7 of you participate. So I think you are prepared and have shown that you're prepared to move very quickly and adapt. So we appreciate that.
Mayor?
Councilman Sherman.
I just wanted to echo what Chief Hicks just spoke to. The Q&A and all the questions go to Cordova Prepared. I've been trying to help with that as much as possible. And again, those questions are all coming in and I'm trying to respond daily. But they do need to be vetted. The answers need to be vetted. And so that's why people are not seeing their answers immediately. But I do believe that once we get this new website up and running and we post things there, that will start to really diminish all the repetitive questions people are having. Counselors can use this as a tool as well, and I think that will really be the easiest use of manpower and best use of manpower.
Thank you, Councilman Sherman. So we have weekly meetings, noon to 1 for council. Schedule a regular monthly meeting for a Wednesday evening, and Councilman Gleason.
And we also agreed to meet with NVE, I believe, on Thursdays, or if I'm correct there.
Yeah, was that right? Thursdays?
We didn't ever.
We didn't set a
make-
time.
I meant to do that today with
Okay.
pending agenda. So do you want to try for Thursday at 3? That's what we did last time.
Yeah, I thought that's what we were talking about when we met with them the first time. I just remember they requested weekly, so.
I'm
I did.
open, whatever the rest of the council feels.
Okay. Is council open to that 3 p.m. Thursday for another joint meeting with the tribal council?
Works for me.
Sure.
One really quick question. Is it going to be better off to have them prior to our weekly meeting to make their input more relevant? Because if we do it Thursday, it's a whole nother week until it would come up as relevant to the next meeting. Just a question.
I might defer to Helen. I think I know that city staff are working with tribal staff as well on an almost daily basis, and I think issues that are rising to the surface, they're prepared to bring those to either council or both when and if they arise. Is that fair, Helen? Or?
Yes, and I just want to give you an update that our legal counsel, Holly, is communicating with their legal counsel as was requested in the last meeting. So we've started a conversation on another level. So I think, the issues that both of our organizations are going to have might be different, and we'll have to hone in on the things that we want to work on collaboratively.
To answer you directly, Councilman Gard, if the tribe reaches out and requests a meeting before that schedule, we will certainly schedule one.
I'm not expecting such a thing, but.
I'm not either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But are we going to
It
do,
was just a question. You guys have
You bet.
answered what I had there.
are we having
Yes,
a
Susan.
special meeting in 2 days on Wednesday, the 15th? Because today's Monday, we just had one. So yes, at noon,
Is-
Wednesday, the 15th.
Is that council's expectation this Wednesday or next Wednesday for your next special meeting?
I'd say this Wednesday, and if we don't need it, then you just cancel it.
Up to the rest.
I mean, it's going to be weekly Wednesday meetings, so.
Okay.
Let me say it this way. Does any council feel like you need to have one this Wednesday, or do you want to just start with a regular Wednesday next Wednesday?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilman Schaefer.
Councilman Schaefer.
I feel like at this point, everything's changing on a day-to-day basis. So, with emergency meetings and whatnot. So I would be in favor of just keeping it as a placeholder at least for this Wednesday, and then if we don't need it, we don't need it.
Okay. Good enough.
Mayor, this is Councilman Sherman.
Councilman Sherman.
I'm in complete agreement with Ann, and I think once again, this is going to make us transparent to the community that we have these meetings scheduled.
Okay, great. So just to summarize, we have a joint meeting. We'll reach out to NBE staff for 3 o'clock this Thursday. We have a weekly Wednesday meetings from noon to 1 starting this Wednesday. The incident management team is going to schedule a time to brief you on Appendix L and roles of the members of the incident management team. And then work session before this Wednesday meeting just to talk about policy, or we're just going to wait for the incident management team briefing for that, I guess. So Wednesday noon,
Okay.
Thursday at 3, and then an incident management team briefing sometime this week. Anything else for pending agenda? Okay, since we have our council on the line, I guess I think that Appendix L actually will answer some questions. I want to make sure that I'm staying within my authority as mayor too, and there's kind of different tiers of normal operations, emergency operations, and martial law if and when that's declared. So I think that's something we can circle back to after the incident management team training. With that, we'll go back to audience participation. So you can call 253-6202. And remember to mute your YouTube when you get online. You'll have 3 minutes to comment. Please clearly state your name for the record. We won't take 2 sets of comments. Each person will have 1 opportunity to testify for 3 minutes. And remember that you'll get on-hold music. Just stay on hold until we answer your call, and then mute your YouTube. And it's for it's audience participation in general. So, is there any other council pending agenda items while we're waiting for the phones? Okay, we have a call. So your online caller, if you could please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is James Barr. I am an out-of-state fisherman, and I don't have a question, just a comment. I am glad that you guys are taking this pandemic seriously. I'd like you to know that I am as well, and I will comply with all ordinances that you guys impose. I will make sure to quarantine myself as soon as I come into town, and apply with any other rules that you guys come up with. I would recommend that perhaps there are some fishermen who don't have transport from the airport, and perhaps that could be an issue that could be addressed.
Okay, thank you very much. It's good suggestion.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, that call-in number again is 253-6202.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you hang up, then we can take more calls.
Okay, I'll hang up now. Yep.
Okay, you're still on the line.
James Barr, I'm not.
You're still on the line. You need to hang up.
Oh, no, that's you.
Oh, it's YouTube. Okay. So please mute YouTube. You're online now. If you could state your name for the record. We don't have anybody.
Sorry, I'm trying to hang up. I'm not sure how my phone is working.
Oh, okay.
Why can't I hang up?
Turn your phone off.
Turn the power off. Yeah, we're all learning new things about our electronics in this day and age, so we'll all be experts. Okay, we have the next caller on. If you could please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, Ken Jones, 514 Sunnyside Drive. Are you kidding me? Martial law comment. I didn't even have time to prepare for that one, so I would just suggest to not go down that road. I was calling to finish. I'm glad that you guys voted down 1186, and that there's nobody voting in favor of it. I have my comments written here. The intent of the state to exclude Cordova from being able to restrict travel was crystal clear prior to this ordinance being written and its end of being noticed. It's 2 press briefings. While the written amendment does provide further clarifications to clear up all of the loopholes that 1186 was crafted to take advantage of, the manager is on record well before this was ever moved forward, stating it was her understanding of the entire situation that Cordova was never meant to fall under the exemption outlined in the original attachment B, and advising council should not proceed with it. The lawyer also advised waiting for written clarification before proceeding. A few on council ignored this expertise and moved this onto the agenda anyway, resulting in much heartache, false panic, and distraction from what we really need to be focused on. If you want something brought forward, you should request it on the agenda and have it brought up at the next regular meeting.
Okay, Kenny, you're very clear there, Kenny, but we're losing you at times. Whatever you did on your mic right there, you came in clear again.
Okay, sorry, is that better?
That's much better. Thank you.
I will hold it towards the window. If you want something brought forward, you should request it during pending agenda and have it brought up at the next regular meeting. These no notice and short notice special meetings are supposed to be reserved for short notice emergency purposes. So far, we have wasted 5 days of staff time and community angst on an illegal travel ban. I fail to see the emergency if we can afford to be wasting 5 days on this topic. I'm also wondering what authority CCMC board members have to be commenting about canneries and airports. As I recall, they don't. Their job is to prepare and manage the hospital for the upcoming pandemic, not lobby to stop the entire economy of our community, or to take it upon themselves to harass and conduct inspections of fishing businesses and fish processing businesses, inspections that could possibly violate state mandates and law. As of right now, the incident command team recommends that our best strict quarantine and social distancing is our best defense against this virus. They specifically put in their request for the $500 fine, and I support that. And now that it's been properly noticed, I'm in full support of that. The council action as outlined in 1186 was not recommended by the IMT prior to the meeting, as far as I've found anyway. Council members that push for these actions to be on the agenda are breaking the very foundation of ICS down and trying to micromanage the response. The council needs to be strictly in a support role to the team, not working in two opposing directions or trying to take control away from the IMT. Closing of the airport or canneries will result in an economic disaster on top of the pandemic. Not exactly a good thing to have two disasters happening simultaneously. Thank you for upholding your oath and acting legally by voting 1186 down today. And please remember to stay in your lane for future actions and agenda items. Please support the efforts of the IMT with real-world solutions and do not distract from their goal and mission by using your position to push personal or family agendas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kenny. Okay, caller, you're online. If you could state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, everybody. J.R. Lewis here from KLAM KCDV, and I want to echo the many comments that are made about the hard work that you're doing, which, as I know from my own job, is a lot of it is behind the scenes. And what I wanted to mention was being encouraged by the comments that were made about continuing to improve efforts to inform the public, both in terms of whether it's signage and infrastructure or volunteers at the airport, possibly volunteers at the harbor, or the mentioning of the Coast Guard, just trying to do everything possible to educate people. And on the public awareness front, as you know, Clay, especially in the PIOs, we jumped in, it's hard to tell with all the days seeming the same, but about a week ago, offering to do daily briefings with the mayor, kind of to let people know what's in progress and what's being worked on. And then there was to be a weekly FAQ show where we would give answers that have been vetted to questions that have been sent to Cordova Prepared. It wouldn't be a live show. It would be questions where, or a situation where the incident management team could answer questions that where the answers had been vetted, and then that could be shared with everybody. Now, obviously, with the schedule you guys have been on, that's been challenging. We're still offering that time and would still like to use it if it can be helpful. But, like I say, I know we can plan for those things all we want, and it's not necessarily going to work with the schedule of meetings. I would like some guidance at some point. Obviously, it doesn't have to be now in the middle of this meeting. Just to reconfirm, who is the best person that I should contact if we want to be able to get something out on the air, whether it's one of the PIOs or whoever, or if you're going to move more toward a model where you would like me to be getting the information that we're going to be sharing with the public from the city, getting it to that website. And if that's the case, I'm fine with that, being tasked with the responsibility of checking the site. Although I'd like to use voices like Clay's or like the PIOs or the city manager or whoever. I think that being able to talk to you guys directly is more impactful, but I can certainly go to a website. I want to help you guys get this information out and make sure that it's accurate. So I guess my request is just to be kept in the loop as much as possible to know who I'm supposed to talk to and when, and so we can help you guys do your job and make sure we do our job. So thank you again, and hope we'll be speaking with you sometime soon. I'm out.
Okay, thank you very much for your service as well to Cordova, JR. Okay, next caller, you're on. If you could just state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm William Deaton, 524 2nd Street, and I'm a high school senior. I would like to share a message of hope because I saw in the news, I think yesterday, maybe the day before that, Alaska has the lowest rate of infection. That means that the social distancing is working, mask wearing is working. We as Alaskans are successful at stopping the virus, stopping the spread. We are reducing the curve, and testing is vitally important. And I know that all of you guys know that. But what I would like to see is testing for people who come in at the airports. I'd like to see testing at the harbor. I'd like to see testing if and when we get the ferry. And I don't know if that's legal. I don't know if that's possible. I think that might have been mentioned a little bit earlier. But I'd like to see that because I think it's important that we know when people arrive in town whether they're infected or not. And maybe I'm simplistic in my thinking here, but that means maybe you don't have to quarantine for 14 days if your test comes back negative. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's my thought process on it. I'd like to see our economy reopen, and I think testing is vitally important for that. But I know that we don't have the testing capabilities yet. So I think that should be our number one priority right now, to get as many tests as possible, test as many as possible, and to reopen our economy, because that is the goal. Thank you guys for what you're doing. Thank you to the incident command team. Everybody is working hard on this, and we are going to be successful because we are Cordovan. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next caller, if you could state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Sarah Parker. I'd like to speak on the note of testing. While it should be one of the highest priorities of the city to secure a way to do broad spectrum testing, at this time it is not guaranteed. Because we don't have any guarantees that we will have access to broad spectrum testing prior to the gillnet season, and we are working with a limited amount of time, we need to be realistic about this, and we need to have a solid backup plan. Our only plan can't be contingent on testing we don't even know we'll have in time. I support the city doing whatever they can to secure greater testing capabilities and doing everything within their power to pursue it, though at this time it is not guaranteed, and we should be planning accordingly. In regards to earlier comments about case counts reporting, currently in the state of Alaska and elsewhere around the country, case counts are tallied according to the residence of the sick individual, not the individual's actual location. For example, on the North Slope, there was only one reported confirmed case counting towards Alaska's total case count, though it is known there are multiple positive cases in the slope. The state only reports one because only one positive case was an Alaskan resident, and the remaining cases hold residents out of state. Additionally, it is my understanding that from the state's website that if an individual tests positive in Fairbanks and their legal residence is in Anchorage, the case counts towards the individual's community of residence, not their physical location, seeing as approximately half of the people that will be in Cordova this summer are transient and hold residence elsewhere. If and when someone tests positive here, will the public be notified if an individual tests positive but holds residence elsewhere, or will that information be withheld because the individual technically doesn't live here? I understand HIPAA rights and protecting the individual's identity, but I think the public of Cordova should be notified if there's a confirmed case here, whether the sick individual claims residency here or not. This question applies to processors as well. Are the processors obligated to report cases to the city? The plans posted by Trident do not reflect this. In regards to City Ordinance 1187, I'd like to ask about the wording in Rules 15 and 16 regarding mutual aid agreements. The first paragraph of each states that the operator, quote, should submit a mutual aid agreement, unquote. Is this a soft request? Is the mutual aid agreement, as well as other city or state mandates, optional or mandatory? And if they are mandatory, why are we not using language that reflects that? Perhaps instead of using words like please, we ask, and should, the city should be using words like mandatory, required, and must to reflect this. Finally, I implore that in all policy-making decisions and actions that the city manager and council rely on science, epidemiology, and doctors first. All other input should come second. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, caller, you're online. If you could state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hey, good afternoon again. It's Brett Bradford, 402 Railroad Row. Appreciate you guys following advice from staff and voting down 1186. Also appreciated Mr. Trumbull's comments at the beginning of the meeting. IMP is in place so that council can focus on governing and not responding to the emergency. So let those guys deal with the emergency, and then you guys use, if you need to give them direction, use that through the city manager. It's been a little while since the IMP was activated, but I think that's how it used to work. So anyway, good job today. Seems like the wheels are getting put back on the bus, and you guys are all doing a great job. Keep up the good work. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, caller, you're online. If you could state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello.
We can't hear you. Sorry, we can't hear you. Try something different on your phone.
Okay.
No, we still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you really clearly now. I'm going to start your 3 minutes now.
Okay. This is Joni Behrens, and I just want you to let me know if it's okay to call in again. I was just going to clarify something about the role of the council with regards to the incident management team, if that would be appropriate.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I just heard a comment earlier, and I think there may be some confusion out there about the relationship between the incident management team and the city council. So I just wanted to put it out there for the community that the way that it runs is that the incident management team runs the incident. They do whatever they need to do to make it happen. They do so with the policymakers setting the policy for them. So you guys on the city council fulfill that role. So it is your role to determine what the policy is, and then you tell the policy to the incident commanders, and then they get it done for you. And that's what Paul was trying to tell you at the beginning of the meeting too, if I'm not mistaken, that, they just need clear guidance from the policymakers in order for them to be able to know where to go and what trajectory they take in their decision making on how they do the job on the ground. So I just wanted to clarify that for you guys. It is your role. You are crucial in this whole thing as policymakers. And, really, you are the ones in the community that shoulder the responsibility. So you do need to be involved in the disaster management as policy. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Okay, next caller, if you could turn your YouTube off, please, and state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Christopher Marr. I live at 501 5th Street. And I believe that we have more than enough time to appropriately move personnel into town. And I'm pretty sure that incident management should be in charge of that. And I know those gentlemen, the incident commander and deputy incident commander, to be very reliable and thoughtful and concerned people. And I want to thank the council for their abundance of caution in considering all options available to keep us all safe here in Cordova. I believe an example to follow has been put forward by Amy Hodgkins, who has secured tickets for her crew to come in this coming week, I believe, and has a plan to quarantine them before they do any boat work so that they can proceed and have a safe and hopefully marginally profitable season.
I know that we can rise to the occasion and overcome the obstacles that this virus is putting in front of us. And to Ken Jones, I would just like to say, this is what an abundance of caution looks like. Sorry for upsetting your financial plans. Thank you very much for hearing my comments. Have a good day. Stay safe.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to mention, I do very much appreciate the callers being respectful and recognizing that there are different viewpoints, and just want to continue doing that. But Council appreciates all of your input.
Hello?
Yes, you're on, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you. State your name for the record, please.
Yep. Hi, Bob Smith, 702 Lake Avenue. I just wanted to call. So the other day there was an ambulance call in the harbor, and there was guys from our emergency team down there in the protective gear, which is good. That's a good thing. But when I tried to confirm whether or not this was COVID related, it was impossible to get clarification on that. So that is something that we need to address. And one of the things that I did finally get an answer from the police dispatcher, and he said it was confidential due to HIPAA. Anyhow, if we get everyone to file a HIPAA waiver, people come to town, and this is even more pertinent if your cases go with the residents. But if people come to town, file a HIPAA waiver regarding COVID, then it will be easier to get the information out to the public. Thank you. I'm out.
Okay. Thank you. We're just waiting for calls to come in. 253-6202. We don't have any currently, so we'll give it just a moment. Is there any need for an executive session, Council?
I think so.
Okay. Then we can go ahead and proceed to council comments, and we'll start online again. Councilman Vice Mayor Meyer.
Yeah, thanks again, everybody, for all the work, the incident management team, all the long hours putting in, everybody in the room that I can see online and can't see that's in the room. Thank you for coming in for this meeting and participating. I did want to just make a little comment on the small community emergency travel order, kind of with the conversation with Holly there. There are some good things in there about mandating people coming in, and I'm sad to see Cordova actually not qualifying for it anymore, because it went from 1 page to 3 pages, and there's other things in there. You can no longer restrict people coming in for fishing, but you can do other things to help quarantine them. So maybe some state seems to be listening to us in Cordova. Maybe we can try to get some of those other protective measures for people flying in to do until widespread testing is available, which it's not right now. But I want to thank everyone for all their hard work that they're putting into this, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Meyer. And that's one of the advantages of having regularly weekly scheduled meetings on Wednesday. If the will of council is to have a kind of a truncated ordinance that picks up some of those things and run it by legal, then we have time and a schedule to work with on that. So, Councilman Gard.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for their involvement today. I know this is never easy. For the public, don't be so fast to jump to conclusion to think that we're out to steal your liberties or not be safe enough for you or whatever. Big thing for us has been trying to find out what we can and can't do to try to make things safer here in Cordova. One thing I'd like to look at down the road here, maybe we can take it up next meeting, would be a requirement of face coverings or masks when out in public during Cordova. That's one of the things we can do after the Amendment B. But we got clarification, that was our clarification the other day. So as we learn stuff, we'll keep moving ahead and try to make it as safe as we can, as fast as we can. Thank you very, very much, everybody. I'm out.
Thank you. I guess just for Council Online's reference as well, as Vice Mayor Meyer pointed out, you have your incident team commander, Paul Tremblay, and Deputy Mike Hicks, and Operations Manager Aaron Muma, and Susie Hirschleb here at just about every meeting, and also Jason Gabrielson, city staff, who manages each and every one of these meetings, jumping back and forth between YouTube and manning the call lines and so forth. So that's who's in the room here with us, and your city clerk, Councilman Baylor and Gleason, and myself. Councilman Allison, comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I too would like to thank the community for the participation today. Thank all the staff there for being there. Thanks to the incident management team and the commander there, Paul. Just a comment, I guess, regarding your thoughts on changing policy and such. Just keep in mind that policy doesn't change just because one or two council members make a comment on it. Unless it's voted on and the majority of the council approves it at an official meeting, then you know, you carry on with what you're carrying on with. The management of the incident is yours to do, and if you need help with some other policy, then certainly you can bring that to us, and we can help you out with that. But I think maybe turning off social media for everything except your own sites would be good for everybody in Cordova to do for a week or better. And for those community organizers out there, maybe I know everybody has much to do already, but if Kathy or somebody could get together a letter writing campaign or something, if we can get a list from the IMT of equipment we need, or testing supplies, or PPE, or whatever we're short on. If we need to write letters to the governor or federal delegation, then certainly I would be in support of getting involved in that. I have a comment, I guess, for staff and maybe the attorney to look into. If we were to do executive session with these call-ins, with the inability to tell who's on the line, and people who are not council members at the current time, I'm not sure who all has this number that we call in on and can get into what an executive session would be on, but I certainly would not be comfortable that the executive session was only those who belonged in there, not having the ability to tell who is on the line or even the number of people on this line. So something to look into, I think, before we need to have an executive session. We use executive session as little as possible. Certainly we want to do everything in open that we can, but if we have to do executive session, I certainly wouldn't be comfortable with what we have set up right now. So anyway, thank you all for the work you're doing, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Good comments, Councilman Allison, and some of the I've been learning sign language with some of the incident management team, and your incident commander just signed me that Helen had Jason set up 2 or 3 additional phone lines that have different codes. We could use one of those perhaps for executive session, and I'm getting a nod, so I interpreted that correctly. So we could set a separate one up for you to call in for executive session and know that you have a secure line. And Helen is here in the room with us as well. So thank you. Councilman Schaefer?
Hi, yep, thank you. I also just want to say thank you to everyone at the city and in the community that are putting in so much extra time to help prepare the community. And thank you for all the public input and engagement. We're all going to get through this together. So, yeah, thank you. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Sherman, comments?
I'll just echo all the thanks to everybody. I know how hard everyone is working on this. And I was going to also say I agree with Councilman Guard, and I see not all of you are wearing your mask. And so I also agree with Councilman Allison, but I'm not going to come to any meeting unless everybody's wearing masks. And that's all for me.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Gleason.
I got a question for Helen, if I may. If we were to announce something about the harbor incident, would it be in Clay's daily briefing that would come
Yeah,
out?
I mean, that would certainly be a place. I know Chief Hicks did an announcement on Saturday on our Cordova Prepared website, as did Kathy Renfeld, and it was really more or less about describing the incident as something where we had an opportunity to exercise what we've been planning, which is getting dressed in PPEs, going and meeting a vessel that we didn't know exactly what we were getting involved in, having that individual removed from the boat, taken to the hospital where the hospital performed their tasks and had an opportunity to go through an exercise. And then at the end of the day, having that individual go back on their vessel and go back out of Cordova Harbor. So I think that is the good news about what happened on Saturday, is that we did what we put in place a plan and we executed it, and it worked beautifully, and all of us in this room are really happy about that. I know there are people that are really anxious to know whether they tested positive for COVID. We have no way of knowing. But I will say that our communications team our goal is to be very transparent. If there's a case of COVID in town, this community is going to hear about it. So, but at this moment in town, the individual came in and within less than 6-7 hours was back out in the Sound. And we, for those who saw someone down in the harbor all dressed up in PPEs, it looked kind of frightening maybe, but for me, it was a sigh of relief in that we know how to do this. We know how to do this. So.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a little bit of an announcement, because I don't know that people know any of that you just said.
So for those that in the community, we do have a Cordova Prepared site on Facebook, and that's where we post as much as possible the most current information. And as I said, within 3 hours of this thing going down, Chief Hicks had put up a fairly extensive post on that. So.
Okay. I guess just make sure the public, the best thing to do for you is to pretend like everybody's got it and protect yourself accordingly, following the mandates. That's our protection. That's our best protection right now. And thanks for the incident team for being here, and to all staff. It's a tough job what we're doing right now. So appreciate the letters that came in, and like I said, they're coming in so many each day that, we wait until the next packet. So when our packets are online, then you'll be able to read those letters. And there's some really good stuff in a lot of those letters. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out tonight to Jason. I know he's working very hard to keep this communication, other things going, as well as the rest of the staff. And I agree with Mr. Allison. If we truly have to go into executive session, we're going to have to figure something out. And even if council has to come down here, if we have to be in different rooms, but there's no way you can have an executive session with people in their own homes. I get a lot of letters, or we're getting a lot of emails to our account. Some of them I personally agree with, some I don't, but as a council person, I try to leave that out. I think my role is to bring everybody's opinion and concerns and get them a hearing and try to get them an answer. The fact that I may or may not agree with their point of view doesn't matter as much. I'm here to represent everybody, and I think we all kind of feel the same. Yeah, there might be some frustration that things come on the agenda, but, you know, everybody has a right to be heard, and we can take the time to let them be heard, and hopefully we take the right action. As far as the noon meetings, I did get a couple comments from people like it kind of made it hard for them to listen to, but I would just like to say this for myself, and I think others will agree. This 12 o'clock meeting, it runs to 3 o'clock. Now I've got time to go take a walk. I've got time to have dinner, talk to my wife, and hopefully get some sleep tonight. If we have these meetings at 7 o'clock, that puts us at 10 o'clock. It's very hard to bring this home and go right to bed. We're all wound up, and I think that's probably true for staff. They're under a lot of pressure. So for those of you, I hope you just give us your understanding. These noon meetings does help our mental health as well, and that of staff. So with that, I appreciate any comments that you have. Send the emails to us, and we'll try to keep this thing moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Baylor. It's also the noon meetings also give staff a little bit of time to prepare in the mornings before the council meeting, and it also gives staff time to execute council's direction and whatnot after the meeting. So it's really good having them in the middle of the day like that, just to keep that agility. And also want to thank council for the time that you're putting in and fielding all the questions. And it's difficult to circle all the way back and remember that it takes us 7 days to find out if someone has it, and even then it's only 70% accurate unless something's changed. So there's some real limitations here. So thank you, council, and there's just one item left on the agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Is there any objection to adjourning? Hearing none, we're adjourned at 2:57.